If you were a kid in the 70s, there's no doubt you watched Sid and Marty Krofft's live-action show, Land of the Lost. It was cheap, it was campy, but damn, it was fun. You had dinosaurs, evil lizards called Sleestaks, and a strange but friendly monkey creature called Chaka.
Chaka hungry!
The show revolved around the Marshall family, Rick, the father, and his 2 kids, Will and Holly. During a routine expedition, their tiny raft plummeted down a 1,000-foot waterfall. Now you think that would have killed any normal family, but it didn't kill the Marshalls. They awoken in a strange new land, a land of claymation dinosaurs, mysterious caves, and those creepy lizard creatures. Over the show's run, the family's biggest goal was to return home. Now I was a little confused, to be honest with you, as a kid watching this. At first I thought, okay, they went back in time to when the dinosaurs roamed Earth. But there was no Sleestaks in Earth's history, so it seems they wasn't on Earth, but another planet. It was kind of confusing. But what a lot of people don't know is that the family did actually make it home. Well, kind of. The final episode opens with the Marshall family swimming in a local swimming hole. While underwater, Will discovers a hidden tunnel system. The tunnel system, it matches those found in the Lost City, a mysterious ancient city that the family discovered earlier in the series. The family decides to explore the tunnels, even though they know there could be Sleestaks inside. I wouldn't go in there knowing that, but they didn't care. They were brave. But they also knew it might could lead to a gateway back to Earth. Inside the tunnel, guess what they find? You're right, Sleestaks. But it wasn't that bad. They were all asleep. They were hibernating. Who knew that? The Sleestaks like to hibernate. Anyway, I guess they were being too loud sneaking around these tunnels because 3 of them woke up and started to chase the family down the tunnels. Of course, this caused the Marshall family to get split up in the tunnel system. Now, I'm not going to get into what happens to everyone on the show because we're going to stick to just the basic plot line of the ending of the show. So let's take a look at Will. He runs into Enoch. Now you might say, who is this Enoch guy? He looks like a Sleestak. Will's not worried he's going to eat him? No, not at all, because Enoch is actually an old friend of theirs. They met him in an episode of season 1. He's a highly intelligent alien that's an ancestor to the Sleestaks before they became creepy cave lizard people. Will is shocked to see this guy standing there. I mean, it's kind of odd. He's just standing there. And Will thought he already returned home to his own time. But Enoch explains he didn't. Something went wrong. It seems to travel through the time portal or paradox, whatever it is. Something of the same mass has to return that goes away. So if he goes through the portal, something of equal size has to return in its place.
I'm sorry you do not understand ultra-dimensional matrices. It is actually quite simple. I cannot leave here. Nothing can leave here unless an object of equal mass and temporal energy enters.
Eventually, Rick and Holly do make their way to Will and Enoch. There, Enoch uses this strange computer-like device. I think he calls it the Matrix table. Anyway, he uses this thing to open up some kind of portal on the wall. It shows the Marshall family in the raft going down the waterfall. Now, if you think this footage looks familiar, that's because it does. We saw it on the opening of every episode. I mean, can you blame them? Why waste budget and shooting time when you can just take that clip from the show and add it here? Now, the Marshall family, they're confused. The scene keeps repeating itself. The Marshall family scene going over the waterfall in the raft, and then all of a sudden they're back at the top again and doing it over and over again. Will even believes, hey, maybe they're dead, but they're not dead. Enoch has a theory. He believes the problem is that the family never actually completed the trip. Somehow they became trapped in some kind of time vortex, existing in the land of the lost while also being stuck on the raft, reliving the fall over and over again. Damn, this show's pretty damn deep. This sounds like an episode of Star Trek more than it does a Saturday morning show for kids in the 70s.
Enoch says we've never fallen through the doorway.
That's impossible. If we didn't fall through the time doorway, then why are we here?
Daddy, do something!
Look, Dad. See? There's no mist when we fall over the falls. It's like we fall into nothing.
Why does that sequence keep playing of us going over the falls again and again?
That is the source of the paradox. The Matrix is locked on to that incident.
Well, thankfully, there's a solution. If the family travels through the portal at the exact moment their raft enters the vortex, it should close the loop and finally send the family home.
Think about it, Enoch. If they enter, then we can leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
The time doorway will no longer be locked on that scene, and you can leave too.
The Marshall family say goodbye to Enoch, and they disappear into the doorway. This is where it gets really strange. We see the family arriving at the Land of the Lost. The first episode, all over again. The whole thing is one big giant circle. I guess that explains the episode title. It's called Circle. It seems to leave the Land of the Lost, the Marshals have to complete the same event that originally brought them there. If I'm confusing you, let me try to explain it. They go into the portal and I guess appear back in the waterfall, back in the water, while they're also on the raft. That family ends up back at the Land of the Lost. Now what happens to them when they return to Earth? I mean, they just fell down a 1,000-foot waterfall. Maybe they're all dead. It doesn't really say. Now back in the cave, Enoch's standing there watching them as they arrive to the Land of the Lost. They're wondering if they're ever going to get home. And Enoch to himself says that they will. We know they will. It's one big loop.
Yes, my friends, you will. Someday. The cycle is now complete. I can go home to my time. Galactic, my friends.
And honestly, this would have been a perfect ending to the show. But there is a catch, one I didn't tell you about. Because this is actually the final episode of Season 1. See, the thing is, Sid and Marty Krofft shows usually didn't get more than one season of a show. So the producers, they wanted to give a final episode to Season 1. Because they figured they were done. But then NBC renewed it. And suddenly the writers had a problem. Because now the family got home. You still have, I'll call them Prime 1. Prime 1 got home. Prime Family 2, they're reliving the events we saw in Season 1. It's just one big loop. So what did they do about this? Well, nothing really. Season 2 comes on and nothing's ever really said. They don't talk about the vortex. They don't talk about the time loop. Nothing ever comes up again. And if you're thinking, well, I'll just watch the show and put this one at the end of Season 3. That way they do get home. Hold on now. That's not as easy to do either because at the beginning of Season 3, the dad left the show. Seems he was out looking for food or berries or something, and he found a doorway and disappeared. Well, now we don't actually see this. We see the back of his head because the actor didn't want to come and film it because he left the show. He was upset about money or something. Anyway, Uncle Jack comes. He comes there looking for the Land of the Lost family. So I guess if it wasn't for this uncle coming on, the dad leaving the show, you could just move the final episode of Season 1 to the end of Season 3 and get your ending. Because at the end of Season 3, it just ends, no bang. They didn't know it was going to be the last episode, just a normal episode, and that's it. So let's just sum up again. At the end of Season 1, the Marshall family, they returned to Earth. Also, the Marshall family returned to the Land of the Lost. There's 2 different Marshall families out there. Damn, who knew this show was so deep?
Hey, Jumpman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.